At my graduation, my dad stood up and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're a disgrace to this family." And just like that, the whole crowd of relatives busted out laughing. I didn't say a word, just smiled, kept my cool, and pulled out my new house keys to show them. Not even 10 minutes later, I heard my father's booming voice roll across the auditorium again, and the laughter from my relatives followed right behind, blending together into this nasty little chorus of mockery. My mom, like always, just sat there stiffly, staring down at the program in her lap, acting like I wasn't even there. I caught my older brother, Mark, elbowing my sister, Beth, both of them grinning wide like they were sharing some private joke at my expense. Honestly, I should have seen it coming. No matter what I accomplished, no matter how hard I worked for it, it always ended the same, with them making a joke out of me. Truth was, my dad had never been proud of anything I did. My brother and sister practically lived for chances to tear me down. And my mom? She just let it all happen like it wasn't her problem. So really, I don't know why I ever thought tonight would be different. Graduation was supposed to be my night, something I fought for tooth and nail, completely on my own. They didn't chip in for tuition, didn't lift a finger to help, didn't even offer a kind word. It was just me, endless sleepless nights, and sheer stubbornness, pushing myself to prove, mostly to myself, that I was worth a damn. But here they were, laughing like it was all some big joke. I could feel people staring, could hear the whispers from strangers who didn't have the full story but sure picked up on the cruelty. Some looked confused, some looked downright uncomfortable, but not a single one of them spoke up. I didn't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, I smiled bigger, reached into my pocket, and pulled out the set of keys I'd been itching to show. I held them up, letting them catch the light so everyone could see. And just like that, the laughter died off. For the first time in my life, I watched my family go stone-cold silent. And let me tell you, that was just the start. For a long, thick moment, the only sounds filling the place were the happy shouts and chatter of other graduates celebrating with their families. But over in our row? Not a peep. My dad squinted at the keys in my hand, his smirk slipping into something he couldn't quite hide, confusion, maybe even fear. Mark leaned in a little, his grin faltering, and Beth kept glancing back and forth between my hand and my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle she didn't know existed. Finally, my dad broke the silence, his voice low but still dripping with that old irritation. "What's that?" I spun the keys around my fingers before answering, nice and easy. "Oh, these? Just the keys to my new house." Beth let out this short, sharp laugh, the kind she did when she didn't know what else to do. "Yeah, right," she said, sneering. "You can barely cover rent." I turned to her, still smiling like it didn't even touch me. "Not rent," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. "A house. Bought it. Paid for it. All mine. No landlords, no roommates, no handouts. Just me." I let those words hang heavy between us. Crazy how a disgrace like me managed to pull that off, huh? And just like that, silence. I watched it hit them, watched the cracks form right there in their faces. Mark's jaw tightened, his whole look darkened. Dad shifted around in his seat, crossing his arms like he could somehow block the truth out. And Mom, she just blinked and blinked, like maybe if she didn't blink, she could pretend she misheard me. For once, they didn't have some smart-ass comeback ready. And I wasn't about to rush past that moment, I let it stretch, savoring the sweet, unfamiliar taste of being the one holding the cards. Then, like none of it even mattered, I slid the keys back into my pocket and stood up. As I made my way across the stage, my professor met me halfway, smiling big and proud. "Congratulations, son," he said, shaking my hand hard and handing me my diploma. His handshake felt solid, real, a sharp, almost painful reminder of everything I never got from my old man. I turned to glance back at my family, holding my diploma in one hand and those house keys in the other. I tilted my head, smiling wide enough for them to see it wasn't fake. "So," I said. "Are we still laughing?" Not a single sound came out of them. And what they didn't know, what they couldn't even guess yet, was that this was just the tip of the iceberg. Their silence felt heavy and thick, and it was the best damn thing I'd ever heard. For as long as I could remember, my family had treated me like I was the punchline to some endless, mean-spirited joke, the failure, the screw-up, the one nobody ever really counted on. But standing there that day, diploma in one hand and the keys to my brand new house in the other, they finally had nothing smart to say. Not a word. And let me tell you, I wanted to drink that moment and let it soak deep into their bones the same way all their nasty words had soaked into mine over the years. I slipped the keys into my pocket and turned to leave, feeling pretty damn good about myself. Far as I was concerned, my job here was done. Or so I thought. Wait, my mother's voice broke through the quiet like a rusty hinge. It was soft and shaky, not like her usual sharp bark. You bought a house? She asked, almost like she couldn't believe it. I stopped, raised an eyebrow. Funny, this woman had spent most of my life pretending I didn't exist unless there was something in it for her. Now, all of a sudden, she was curious? I turned around slow, giving her my full attention. Yeah, I said, voice steady and calm. I bought a house. My father let out this scoff that was supposed to sound tough, but it landed wrong. There was something off about it, like he was rattled. And just how the hell did you manage that? He barked. You've never had any real money. There it was. He wasn't asking because he cared. He wasn't impressed. He was scared. I almost laughed. This man had spent my whole life beating it into me that I wasn't good enough. That I needed them just to survive. And yet, here I was, standing taller and stronger than I ever had before. I stepped a little closer, lowering my voice so it was just between us. I managed the same way I managed to graduate without a dime of help from you, I said, locking eyes with him. The same way I built my life while you sat back and bet against me. I let that hang in the air for a second before adding, real quiet, by not being like you. His nostrils flared, and for a second, I thought he might actually lunge at me like he used to when I was a kid and he felt cornered. Rage, intimidation, control, that was always his go-to move when he didn't have the upper hand. But this time? He had nothing. I turned and started walking toward the door. If I left now, I'd have the last word without even speaking. But then Mark, my ever-charming brother, couldn't help himself. He muttered just loud enough for me to catch, probably some dump in a bad neighborhood. He snorted, real proud of himself. No way he could afford anything decent. I stopped dead in my tracks. A slow, easy smile crept across my face. An idea was starting to take shape, one that would make this victory even sweeter. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped around a little, and then turned the screen toward them. There, in full color, was a picture of my house. Not some dingy apartment. Not some falling apart shack. A house. Modern. Sleek. Sitting pretty in a gated community. A place so far out of their league it wasn't even funny. Beth leaned in, her mouth half open like she was seeing a ghost. My mother's fingers twitched like she wanted to snatch the phone right out of my hand to see if it was real. But my father? His whole face twisted into something ugly. I knew that look. It wasn't just anger or disbelief. It was pure, bitter jealousy. And right then, I realized something, they were in trouble. They just didn't know how much yet. That jealousy settled over him like a storm cloud. I'd seen it before any time Mark did something halfway decent or Beth got praised, but never aimed at me. Because in their minds, I'd never been a threat. Until now. Beth kept glancing between me and the picture, her disbelief shifting into something else. Worry. Not for me, mind you. For herself. You're joking, right? She said, laughing a little too hard, voice tight like a rubber band. There's no way you. Oh, but I did, I cut in, nice and smooth. And you know, I added, like it was just a passing thought, I wasn't even planning on saying anything tonight. Just figured I'd grab my diploma and head out. I turned to Mark, who looked like he was chewing rocks. But you had to open your mouth, I said, shaking my head with a grin. And now, well, now I gotta say something. My father's hand curled into a fist against his knee. Enough of this cryptic bull, he snapped, his voice shaking a little. If you've got something to say, spit it out. Man, I'd been waiting years for him to say that. I slid my phone back into my pocket, stood up a little straighter, and smiled at the three of them. All right, I said. Let's talk. I took my time, letting my gaze fall on each one of them, watching that smugness drain right out of their faces. Dad, I started, easy and casual. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about the second mortgage? And just like that, boom. His face went white. Bingo. Beth's eyes went big as saucers. Mark sat up straight, looking between me and Dad like he was watching a train wreck. What? Mark blurted. Shut up, Mark. Dad snapped, his voice cracking. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The second mortgage you took out last year, I said, nice and slow. The one Mom doesn't even know about. My mother's head whipped toward him so fast I thought she might snap her neck. What? And there it was, the beginning of the end. I watched the horror roll across her face, watched her connect the dots. "And you didn't take out that loan for home improvements, did you?" I said, pretending to think hard. "You were gambling with money you didn't have. And when you lost, you dragged the house into it." I tilted my head, giving him a look of fake sympathy. "And now, well, now you're drowning in debt." "You little," he started, his face turning beet red, but I just held up a finger. I said, shutting him down. "We're just getting warmed up." I shifted my attention to Beth, who was already looking pale. "Don't," she whispered. "Oh, but I must," I said, tapping my chin like I was thinking it over. "You know, it's crazy how people put their whole lives on social media these days. Makes it real easy to find out things." Beth swallowed hard. "You really thought no one would notice you living like a millionaire on a teacher's salary?" I said, smiling wide. "All those designer bags, those fancy vacations, the non-stop parties. Unless, of course, it wasn't her salary footing the bill." Her lips trembled. She looked ready to bolt. Mom," she started. I turned to my mother, who looked like she was about 2 seconds from a full-blown breakdown. "You might want to ask Beth where all that money really came from," I said casually. Beth's breath hitched. "You're lying," she cried. "Oh?" I said, pulling out my phone again and scrolling to a set of screenshots. "Because according to these bank transfers," I said, holding up the evidence, "it looks like Beth's been draining your savings account for the past 2 years. My mother gasped and slapped her hand over her mouth. And just like that, the whole house of cards started crashing down. "What?" Mark muttered under his breath, shifting in his chair like he was hoping he could somehow slide right out of the mess unraveling around him. Beth shot up from her seat, practically knocking her chair over. "You went through my accounts?" "That's illegal," she shrieked. I just shrugged, all casual. "Not if Mom was the primary account holder." And lucky for me, she was. The air in the room got heavy, like we were all standing in a vacuum. My mother turned from Beth to my father, betrayal scrawled all over her face. "Is this true?" she whispered. Beth said nothing. My father sure as hell didn't deny it. "Mark?" He just shook his head, looking lost. I turned my attention to him. "You're awfully quiet," I said, tilting my head. His head jerked up, eyes wide. "I what?" "No, I don't bother," I cut him off clean. "Beth covered for you once already, didn't she? That little 10 grand you borrowed from Dad's company to clean up one of your screw-ups?" Mark's eyes darted to Dad like a dog begging for backup, but all he got was pure rage. "You what?" my father growled, his voice low and dangerous. And just like that, for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being ripped apart at a family gathering. Mark's mouth opened and closed, like he was searching for words he didn't have. I didn't steal. I just borrowed it." I chuckled quietly under my breath. "Did you ever pay it back?" The silence that answered said it all. Beth, still trying to scrape up some dignity, turned on me with a hiss. "Why are you doing this?" I tilted my head, almost amused. "Why?" "Because I spent my whole damn life being your punchline. Every time I made something of myself, you made sure to tear me right back down. So I figured, why not return the favor?" I turned back to Mom. She looked shell-shocked, bouncing her gaze between my father and Beth like she didn't know which betrayal to fall apart over first. "You took my money," she whispered, voice trembling. Beth's lips quivered. "Ma, I just needed some help, I know." For the first time, real anger flared in my mother's eyes. Beth stumbled back a step like she'd been slapped. My father wasn't even paying attention to Beth anymore, he was locked on Mark, his fists clenched like he was barely holding himself back. I just stood there, taking it all in the perfect storm they built with their own hands. I had spent years drowning under their weight, and now here they were, sinking without me. I could have walked away right then and there. God knows I'd already won. But there was one last thing I needed to say. I turned back to my father, made sure I had his full, seething attention. "Oh, and one more thing," I said casually. "Since I know you're gonna need money real soon, don't bother calling me." His jaw twitched. His face darkened. "You ungrateful little," I held up a hand and cut him off. "No. You don't get to lecture me. Not anymore. Not after everything you've done." I breathed out slow, my voice dropping into something cold and final. I'm done with this family. Enjoy the mess you made. Beth's breath hitched. You can't just. I can, I said, and with that, I turned and walked straight out the door, leaving them behind exactly where they belonged, in their own wreckage. The cool night air hit me like a blessing. My pulse was steady. My breathing was calm. For the first time in my entire life, I was free. No more insults. No more guilt trips. No more being their scapegoat while they hid behind fake smiles and fake success. I could have left it there. Should've, maybe. But deep down, I knew my family too well. They wouldn't sit in their own mess and self-reflect. No, they'd panic. They'd scramble to grab back any control they could. Sure enough, I barely made it 5 steps before my phone started buzzing. Mom! Come back inside. We need to talk. I smiled as it rang again, then answered, keeping my voice light and easy. Oh, now you want to talk? I heard the shuffle of the phone changing hands, and then my father's voice came on, lower, tighter, trying real hard to sound controlled. You don't just walk away from your family. I laughed quietly. That's rich, coming from people who spent their whole lives making sure I knew I was never really part of it. There was a long, heavy silence. Then Mom's voice, soft and pleading. Please, honey. We're still your family. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. No. You were a weight tied around my neck. Another long pause. Then my father, switching tactics. His voice sharpened. All right, fine, he snapped. You made your damn point. But don't go thinking you're better than us just because you bought yourself some house. I laughed again, a little deeper this time. Oh, it's not just a house, I said, taking my sweet time. You want to know what else I've got? Silence. Security, I said finally, letting the word cut through him like a knife. A real job. Real savings. Investments. I smiled, knowing he could feel every word sinking in. All the things you don't have anymore. I heard the sharp exhale through the phone, the sound of a man realizing, maybe for the first time, that he truly lost. Mom's voice came again, desperate now. We need you. There it was. Not we love you. Not we're sorry. Just we need you. I closed my eyes for a second, soaking it in their fear, their panic, their helplessness, and breathed out slow. I was done. Really, truly, finally done. Then, in the calmest voice I'd ever used with them, I said, I know. And I hung up. Just like that. The second the call ended, the text started flooding in. Mom, we need to talk. Beth, you're acting crazy. Just come back inside and stop being dramatic. Mark, you're seriously doing this? Over what? A stupid house? Dad, you don't get to just cut us off. You owe this family. I let out a low laugh. Owe them? For what, exactly? For the years they spent ridiculing me? For making me their personal punching bag while pretending I was never enough? For using me like an ATM when it suited them and tossing me aside the rest of the time? No. They were scrambling now, desperate, grasping at straws. Good. I slid my phone back into my pocket and headed toward my car. But before I could reach it, the auditorium doors burst open behind me. Hey! I turned to see Beth storming toward me, heels clicking hard against the pavement. Mark trailed after her, hands jammed into his pockets, face twisted into a scowl. Beth stopped a few feet away, breathing hard, trying to look composed. But I saw it, the panic in her eyes, the way her jaw was tight with frustration. Look, she started, voice softer now, trying a different tactic. I get it. You're upset. But this? She waved between us, this is stupid. You're throwing everything away over some petty grudge. I tilted my head slightly, amused. A grudge? Yes, she snapped, folding her arms tight across her chest. So what if Dad said some things? So what if we teased you? That's just how our family is. We mess with each other. It's not that deep. I took a slow, steady breath, shaking my head. You still don't get it, do you? Beth opened her mouth again, but I didn't let her finish. It wasn't just teasing, Beth. It was years. Years of being treated like a disappointment. Years of being made to feel like I wasn't good enough. Years of giving time, money, loyalty, and getting nothing but ridicule in return. I locked eyes with her, not backing down. And now you want me to just brush it off because it's inconvenient for you? Mark scoffed from behind her. Oh, come on, man. You've always been too sensitive. We all had to deal with Dad's crap. I turned my gaze on him. Yeah? Funny, because he never called you a disgrace in front of an entire room full of people. He never mocked your every accomplishment. He never made you feel like a stranger in your own damn family. I stepped closer, my voice low and cold. You had it easy, Mark. And deep down, you know it. He looked away, his jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. Beth ran a hand through her hair, frustrated. Fine, she muttered. Let's say you're right. Let's say we were unfair. You made your point tonight. You humiliated Dad. You embarrassed all of us. So what happens now? I smiled, slow and steady. Now. I walk away. Beth blinked, thrown off by how simple it was for me. You don't mean that. Oh, I do. I turned back to my car, pulling the door open. You're on your own now, I said over my shoulder. No more handouts. No more bailouts. No more safety net. Let's see how you all manage without the family joke holding things together. Beth's mask cracked, her voice rising, desperate. You can't just abandon your family. I met her eyes one last time. Watch me. And with that, I got in, shut the door, and drove away, leaving them and all their poison behind me. I didn't check my phone as I drove. I already knew what I'd find. Panic texts. Angry texts. Guilt trips disguised as concern. It didn't matter. For the first time in my life, they needed me, and I was done playing their games. When I pulled into the driveway of my new house, I just sat there for a minute, letting it all sink in. Mine. A place free of their voices, their judgments, their shadows. I stepped inside, locking the door behind me. The air felt different, lighter, cleaner. And then, like clockwork, my phone started ringing. I pulled it out and stared at the screen. Mom. I let it ring twice before answering. Yes? There was a pause. Then, in the softest voice I'd heard from her in years, she said, "Sweetheart. I'm sorry." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Sorry? I repeated. For what, exactly? For everything, she whispered, voice trembling. For the way we treated you. For the things your father said. I should have stood up for you. Her voice cracked. I just don't want to lose you. I leaned back against the counter, my face unreadable. Funny, I murmured, you didn't seem too worried about that when Dad was calling me a disgrace in front of everyone. She sucked in a sharp breath. That was a mistake. He didn't mean it. I cut her off, my voice cold and steady. No, Mom. He meant every word. He always has. And you? You let him. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Finally, she whispered, broken, can we fix this? I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the memories wash over me, every insult, every slight, every time they made me feel small. Could they fix that? No. Some things break too deep. I exhaled slowly, and with a clarity I'd never had before, I said, no, Mom. We can't. A choked sob came through the line. Please, she whispered. Just come home. Let's talk. I opened my eyes, looking around my house, my home. This is home now, I said quietly. And it's about time you accepted that. And before she could say another word, I hung up. I stood there for a long moment, phone still in my hand, feeling the finality of it all settle into my bones. Then I set the phone down, walked to the front door, and stepped outside. The night air was cool and fresh, wrapping around me like a clean slate. I breathed in deep, a slow smile tugging at my lips. Because for the first time in my life, I had one. And I was finally free.